Good evening and good morning for some of the folks. Welcome and thank you all for joining the webinar on Engineering for Futures. Discovery, Discover your path at the University of Alberta. Most of you joined from Bangladesh and some of you may be live streaming from other countries. Thank you all for your time and effort. I am Khaled Akhtar, an executive member of the BUETian Alumni Association of Alberta, and I'll be moderating this webinar. First of all, I'd like to thank BUETian Alumni Association Alberta for helping me in organizing this seminar. There are lots of efforts going behind the scene to arrange the event, and I also like to thank those folks who are heavily involved in making this happen. I am taking this opportunity to introduce the association very briefly before moving to the main session. So, BUETian Alumni Association of Alberta is a social and professional networking hub. The association started its journey in July 2018. Some of the major goals and objectives of this association are to act as a convener in promoting increased knowledge share among the alumni associations, BUET, and other universities and professional institutes in Bangladesh, to arrange social, cultural, and professional activities to foster general greater social cohesion and integration. So, as a part of that, we have been organizing many uh, events for the benefit of Bangladeshi students and also the professionals who are staying in Canada. So I'll give you some example on that. In 2022, we introduced or thrown out one of the webinar which is related to the introduction to hydrological modeling with Python, and we got a speaker from the University of Saskatchewan, and the program was very successful. Later on, we thought out another program for the professional development. The title was An Overview of Alberta Occupational Health and Safety Legislation, which is very important. And I think it's a time demanding topics for the audience who are practicing engineering in Canada, especially in Alberta. Then it's not only the technical things, we also like to mingle with each other. So we organized a picnic. It's called Summer Picnic 2022. So we were like, it was an amazing thing because like the person who graduated in 1980 and the person who graduated in 2020, they are like friends. So it's a good interaction and everybody loves that. Then as the administrative part, we also conducted an AGM in 2022, which is in December. And also there is a get together. So again, it's a family friendly event. So we mixed up together and also there are some cultural things. We are not also enjoying, we are also trying to be part of Bangladesh. So that's why in 2023, on 21st of February, we celebrated our Mother Language Day, which is very successful. Uh, So all of the thing activities that we are doing here, and I'll not take much of your time by talking about what we have done. So as a part of this type of activities, our goals and objectives, we are today organizing this seminar, which I mentioned before is engineering for the future. Discover your path at the University of Alberta. We are very delighted to have Dr. Bipro Dhar today as he agreed to contribute his valuable time. I sincerely hope that we all be uh, enlightened by his talk. But before giving the floor to Dr. Bipro, I would like to say something about him. Dr. Bipro Dhar is an associate professor at the University of Alberta. He received his undergraduate degree in chemical engineering from BUET in 2008. His research involves using environmental biotechnology, bioelectrochemistry, and physicochemical processes to develop advanced energy and resource recovery technologies for the waste and wastewater industries to promote circular economic transition. He has over 75 high quality publication under his belt, and he is uh, like working as a mm, in like helping many of the journal publications for his students, and I think he has around 10 students at this moment. So without further ado, I'll give the floor to Dr. Biprodha.
Yeah, thanks, Dr. Akhtar, for nice introduction. And I would like to take this opportunity to thank BUET Alumni Association Alberta for having me here today. And actually, I prepared a presentation, and I hope we are going to have some time after that presentation. So if you have any questions, I'll be happy to entertain that. So, uh, the title for today's webinar is Engineering for the Future, Discover Your Path at the University of Alberta. So although the title is quite broad, my presentation or talk going to be mainly focusing on graduate studies or graduate programs in the Faculty of Engineering at the University of Alberta. So a brief introduction, Dr. Akhtar already introduced me. I'm an associate professor of environmental engineering in the Department of Civil and Environmental Engineering. And our department is also merged with School of Mining and Petroleum Engineering. And currently, I'm also serving as the graduate coordinator for our environmental engineering and science graduate program. Before I start my talk, I'm very pleased to actually acknowledge the University of Alberta. Its building, labs, and research stations are primarily located on Treaty 6 territory and traditional territory of First Nations and Métis people. I did my undergrad. I graduated from BUET in 2008. I did my undergrad in chemical engineering, and then I did my master's from chemical and biochemical engineering from Western University. It was formerly known as the University of Western Ontario in 2011, and then in 2016 I did my PhD in civil engineering from University of Waterloo, and then I joined here at the University of Alberta as an assistant prof in 2016 August. So in today's talk, I'm going to talk about, I think everyone, kind of attending this seminar know about the University of Alberta, or at least familiar with the name. So I'll provide a brief intro to University of Alberta as a broad, and then I'm going to talk about Faculty of Engineering more, different departments, their research areas, and then I'm going to talk about, I think, the core part of this webinar, mainly talking about different graduate program, how you can get into this program, what are the requirements, how you can apply, and what are the funding and scholarship opportunities. And then I actually have a list of some frequently asked questions that I received even when I was a grad student, and sometimes I receive even these days from Bangladesh and many other places. And then we can actually have some time for Q&A. So let's start with University of Alberta. University of Alberta is one of the top 5 universities in Canada. We have more than 200 undergraduate programs and almost 500 grad programs. And under 500 grad programs, we have 250 specialization and 300 different research areas. And currently, University of Alberta, we have 41,000 students from about 156 countries, and we have 5 different campuses. And so University of Alberta is one of the actually big universities in Canada. And University of Alberta, as a part of our strategic plan, we kind of our research and teaching, for research and teaching, we have 5 different signature areas. And so the first one is energy systems. Possibly all of you know that University of Alberta, many of our programs are heavily focusing on oil and gas engineering, because the province of Alberta, we have actually world's 4th largest oil reserve after Saudi Arabia, Venezuela, and Iran. So many of our programs are actually kind of directly working with, we are trying to see how we can actually help oil and gas industry, which is kind of the backbone of our economy in Alberta. And then another signature area is artificial intelligence for society. So these days we know that actually artificial intelligence, it's very emerging. And many of our programs, even undergrad programs, we have a lot of courses and many activities on artificial intelligence. And the next signature area is precision health. Possibly you know that a few years ago, one of our researchers actually got a Nobel Prize in medicine. So actually our university is currently getting a lot of fundings and research fundings in health sector as well. And recently we introduced two other actually research areas for signature areas, intersections of gender and indigenous peoples and place, kind of supporting truth and reconciliation effort by the federal government. So let's talk more about our Faculty of Engineering. So in our Faculty of Engineering, we have 5 departments and 200 plus professors. Actually, actual number is now close to 300. And we have over 1,500 grad students, and we have 21 fully accredited undergraduate degrees. So all our undergraduate degrees are actually continuously reviewed by Engineering Canada's accreditation board. So we kind of, it's kind of always reviewed, and so we kind of try to make sure that our program is transparent, and we always continuously update or improve our undergrad program. And we have a full range of grad program as well, which I'm going to actually talk a little bit more in my following slides. So first, we have 5 departments: civil and environmental engineering, chemical and materials engineering, electrical and computer engineering, mechanical engineering, and our newest department is biomedical engineering. So biomedical engineering, actually, it was a joint department before between Faculty of Engineering and Faculty of Medicine and Dentistry. But from fall 2023, is this department is actually going to be merged with Faculty of Engineering. So right now, 4 of our departments, actually, we are offering both grad and undergrad program. But biomedical engineering, because it's a new department, we don't have any undergrad program at this moment. But department going to offer actually first grad program in this fall. So my home department is Civil and Environmental Engineering and School of Mining and Petroleum Engineering. If you remember in my very first slide, I mentioned that we are merged with School of Mining and Petroleum Engineering. And we offer grad programs in different research areas. As you can see from the list here: structural engineering, construction management, environmental engineering and science, which is my area, geotechnical, geoenvironmental engineering, material engineering, mining engineering, petroleum engineering, transportation engineering, water resources, and biomechanics. And we have 65, actually we have close to 70 faculty members. And we are actually one of the largest, we are the largest department, engineering department in our campus. And we are also one of the largest engineering department in North America. Based on number of faculty members and number of grad students. Currently, we have about 500 plus grad students in our department. And as a part of our strategic plan in our department, we focus on 3 different areas. So most of our research and teaching programs kind of try to focus on 3 different areas: sustainable energy, kind of covering both conventional and non-conventional energy sources, climate change and environmental restoration, and resilient infrastructure. So I'd like to take just advantage of this, kind of what we are doing in our environmental engineering and science grad program. We have 10 faculty members right now. And the unique feature of our environmental engineering and science grad program is we offer thesis-based master's and PhD degree in both environmental engineering and science, because environmental engineering research is quite multidisciplinary. Even in our actually faculty members, we have faculty members with many different backgrounds. Like even you can see, I did my undergrad in chemical engineering, and right now I'm in environmental engineering. And we have our faculty member, they actually did undergrad in like some of them in biology, chemistry, even physics. And right now they're actually doing research in environmental engineering. But for course-based MEng degree, we only provide a degree in environmental engineering. And some of our core research areas include municipal and industrial wastewater treatment. As a part of United Nations Sustainability Goal, we focus a lot on energy and resource recovery from waste and wastewater, air quality management, and climate change. Some of our new faculty members are focusing on transport and remediation of emerging contaminants like there are many, like, microplastics and nanoplastics, antibiotics, and some other emerging contaminants, PFAS, which is also emerging these days. We also focusing on remediation of contaminated site. Some of our faculty members also working on developing biomaterials for environmental application. So chemical engineering, as you can see, they also cover many different research areas like biochemical and biomedical engineering, material science, nanomaterials, polymer, process control and system engineering, reaction engineering and catalysis, and many more. Mechanical engineering, they have also broad research areas like energy and environment, mechanics and materials, mechanical systems, fluid mechanics, and one core area they actually offer also for grad degrees in engineering management. For electrical and computer engineering, biomedical engineering. So you can see biomedical engineering is covered by many different departments. So that's why actually now we are trying to have a separate department, try to actually promote our research in biomedical engineering. And in this department, we also have computer engineering, control system, energy systems, microsystems, nano devices, and many more. For biomedical engineering, which I mentioned, the newest department in our Faculty of Engineering cover many different areas: biomaterials and tissue engineering, medical devices. You can see medical imaging, medical physics, and microelectrical mechanical systems. And some of our program actually have global reputation. At least you can see from some of the known ranking bodies actually kind of ranked some of our programs in, within top 10 or top 15 in Canada and worldwide. As you can see here in the list, petroleum engineering program in our department is ranked by QS ranking number 1 in Canada and number 8 in the globally. Environmental science and engineering, we are number 11 globally and number 1 in Canada. Chemical engineering, it's number 1 in Canada right now. So, and some other programs also have global reputation, like, some of our programs within top 30 or top 25 globally. So now let's talk about like different programs or different degrees that we offer in our Faculty of Engineering. And as I mentioned earlier, I'm going to be mainly focusing on grad program. So I'm not covering information about undergraduate program this time. So for grad program, we have 3 types of grad program or 3 degrees that we offer. So the first one is MEng, which is course-based and which is actually designed to enhance student technical or managerial or leadership skill through participation in different grad courses, capstone project, and many professional activities. And typical degree requirements are 8 grad courses and a directed research project. So although it's a course-based program, but there is a component where actually students do some design project with the faculty supervisor. And but the degree is heavily focusing on course program. There are 2 thesis-based degree that we offer, which is Masters in Science, which is thesis-based program. Student actually get research experience and specialization in a particular discipline. And typical degree requirements in our department is 6 courses, but in other department, in some department, it may be a little bit different, but more or less the degree course requirement is 6 grad courses and a thesis. For PhD program, it's heavily focusing on research and thesis-based program. So we try to actually train PhD students mainly for academia or corporate research like industrial R&D. and degree requirement is 10 courses beyond their bachelor degree. So because many students actually have prior MSc degree, so they already took some courses in their MSc degree. So that's why we put a requirement that student has to take 10 courses after their bachelor degree. But if someone took 10 courses before, that doesn't mean that they're not going to take any course here. There are some minimum requirement. For example, in our department, even if you have 10 courses after your bachelor degree, you still have to take at least 3 courses, and you have to have a thesis that you are going to be done with your thesis supervisor. And typical CGPA requirement is for MEng and Masters is quite similar, 3 out of 4. And if you letter scale grade, you have to have B. And for PhD, the requirement is a little bit more, 3.3 out of 4 and B plus at least. In last 2 years of your courses. And but this actually requirement is for students who actually got their degree from Canadian universities, but minimum admission requirement for different countries may vary. So if you are interested to apply, it's better to actually check our FGSR website. They have actually different requirement, and most of the time actually after a student apply from different countries, FGSR kind of convert their CGPA to our scale, and based on that scale actually we evaluate the applicant. English language requirement. You have to have actually TOEFL or IELTS score before you apply for our grad program. And for most of our program, typical TOEFL requirement is 92, and IELTS minimum band score required is 7. And in each band, you have to have at least 7. But the good thing is, if you are applying for Bangladesh, most of the actually engineering schools, as you can see in the list, like BUET, CHUET, DUET, RUET, QUET, Independent University, SAST engineering program. So most of the engineering school in Alberta, from Bangladesh, actually, they are in the list of exemption for English language requirement. So that means even if you don't have an English test score, you can still apply and get admission in our program. And for application deadline, so most of our grad student intake, we have it in actually in starting from the fall term, so which is September every year. So most of our grad students actually start in the fall term, but sometimes we also actually allow students to start in summer or winter term. But as I said, most of our intake is going to be in the fall term. And for MEng program, the deadline is a little bit earlier. So if you want to apply for course-based MEng program, for international student, the deadline is typically in March. And for Canadian students, it's in mid-July or early July most of the time, because for international student, it's a little bit earlier, because typically the application processing takes at least few months, and then you have to apply for your student visa. So that's why the deadline is a little bit earlier. For MSc and PhD, typical deadline is for fall admission is mid-April, and for Canadian students it's mid-May. So sometimes I receive comment or question, can I actually, if can apply after the deadline? Actually, a few years ago, we had a lot of flexibility in the admission process. So student could apply even after the deadline. So if I want to recruit a student, I could actually ask the FGSR to open the portal so student can apply if I want to recruit a student. But for right now, actually, it's kind of centralized process. So you cannot apply after the deadline. But let's say I want to recruit a student for MSc or PhD program. You can apply, let's say the deadline has passed for the fall term, you can apply for winter term, and later on, if you get admission, possibly we can request the FGSR to actually change your start date for your program. But this is not actually allowed for course-based MEng program. But these days, actually, because of COVID and some student actually not getting their visa on time, this year for the first time, I can tell our faculty actually approved some students to start in winter term for their MEng program. So, but I think it's to be on the safe side, it's better to actually apply before the deadline set by FGSR. And funding and scholarship opportunities. So for MEng students, we don't have any funding support available, but many of our MEng program actually right now offering internship opportunities. At least I can tell biomedical engineering program, they are going to offer some internship opportunities this year for the first time. And even in our department, we are trying to actually have internship opportunities for our course-based MEng student within next couple of years. So if you apply possibly next year or in the following year, you're going to have some opportunities for internship where actually you can earn some money that can actually support towards your degree. And but most of our MSc and PhD student, they actually receive funding in the form of research or teaching assistantship. Some students, they also receive external or internal scholarship. And for our MSc and PhD student, we have many competitive internal and external scholarship that are actually supported by NSERC, Alberta Innovate, and we have, at least I can tell, I did my master's and PhD in two different universities. I could see in some other universities, most of the scholarships, they're only limited to domestic student. But here at EOFA, we have a lot of scholarship even for international student. At least from my experience, I can tell I supervised about 21 students, thesis students in last 5 years. And my students since 2017 received close to 45 internal scholarship. And most of my actually students, they are actually international students, not domestic. So there are a lot of actually scholarship opportunities here at the University of Alberta. And we also have many career and professional development support for our grad students, and some of them are exclusively for actually MEng student. And why is that? Because MEng students, sometimes they don't have opportunities for a lot of interaction. For example, thesis-based students, sometimes their work is mostly related to, they are working with some industry partner or some industry project. So they have a lot of opportunities or interaction or networking opportunities, which may not be available to MEng students. So we try to actually provide lot of support to our MEng students. So they include, like, many professional communication support in technical writing, how to prepare the resume for or prepare for job interview or writing or presentation skill. And sometimes we also organize industry student mixer. So this is kind of like, try to give networking opportunities. I know that these days there are a lot of social network like LinkedIn, Twitter, but still sometimes, those like in-person interaction are very important. So we try to support our student in career path, industry trend, and potential job opportunities. And as I said, some of them are exclusively for MEng student, because we want students from all different programs to actually succeed in their future career. So now I'm going to talk about how to apply and getting into our grad programs. And first, I would start with course-based masters or MEng program. So for course-based program, actually finding a supervisor is not required because your program gonna be mainly on course-based, and typical length is 18 to 24 months. And some programs actually offer both structured and flexible option. And I want to talk a little bit more about the difference between structured and flexible option. So sometimes student want to actually finish within 1 year or 4 terms. Uh, and but sometimes some students, maybe they have some part-time job and they want to actually have some flexibility in their program. So we offer both in most of our program. So structured program means we kind of define, okay, what courses student gonna take in different terms, and how actually they are gonna actually finish their program. And sometimes we also define their capstone project or project for their degree. But for flexible options, student can actually decide like what courses they are interested in, if they want to actually interested to do their project in some specific topic. So we provide those flexibility. Sometimes a student can take more communication courses, like, student feel that, okay, what, they want to improve their writing skill. So we kind of offer them more opportunities to take some courses or attend more session on communication skill or career coaching. So typical degree requirement in course-based MEng program is 8 courses and a capstone project, and there are some mandatory requirements for professional development and individual development plan session. And as I mentioned earlier, we for MEng student, because they sometimes they do not have a lot of opportunities for interaction and networking opportunities. So we have a lot of actually uh, opportunities for communication training, networking training, and some of our program we also offer internship opportunities for MEng student. And typical program fee for domestic student is about $10,000. It's kind of vary year to year, and sometimes like tuition fees are increasing over the years. So sometimes for most recent fees, you actually should check the FGSR website. But I think more or less typically it's 10,000 for domestic student. So if you're coming as a PR in Canada and if you want to take a course-based MEng program, you are going to pay the domestic fee for domestic student. And for international student is around, I think right now is close to $40,000. So the main difference between MSc and MEng, so between course-based and thesis-based master's program is uh, for thesis-based, you have to take 6 courses, more or less. Some department, the requirement is a little less. And you have to do a thesis. For MEng program, you have to take 8 courses and a project. And then, but for both program, PD and IDP requirements are almost same. Master's program typical duration is 2.5 years. For MEng program is typically less than 2 years, but sometimes it can be up to 4 years because sometimes students actually get full-time job before even they finish their degree, so they want to actually make it part-time. So sometimes it's actually extended to 4 years. Masters of Science student, they receive funding from their supervisor, but MEng students are self-funded. So sometimes actually I think you might have a question because sometimes when student applying for overseas, they want to actually get funding. Sometimes they want to get admission in Masters in Science program. But sometimes when they are not successful, they actually try to get admission in MEng program, and they have some intention that whether eventually they can convert from MEng program to a MSc program. Actually, this is possible. So my first answer is, if you ask me, is it possible to change from a course-based grad program to a thesis-based program? Yes, it's possible. But you have to keep that in mind that even if you are actually want to convert, and if you can find a potential supervisor who is going to actually support you for MSc program, you still have to pay if you're coming as a international student. As an international student, out of that 40,000 tuition fees, you are still going to actually pay your first year tuition fee. So possibly you're going to pay $20,000 still, even if you convert, if you are able to convert from ME to MSc program. So sometimes maybe it's not the the right option for you. You want to finish your degree as quickly as possible and go to industry. So yeah, you have to, I think, you have this kind of option. You have to consider many different factors based on your personal situation. For thesis-based program, you have to, for most of our program, it's mandatory actually find a supervisor, because these days you cannot actually apply for thesis-based grad program until you can find a potential supervisor, because as a part of your application package, you have to submit a letter of expression of interest from a potential thesis supervisor. So that's why, after you choose your program, you have to find a supervisor, and then you can actually apply for admission. So for rest of my talk, I'm going to actually talk about how to actually find your area of interest, and most of my time actually I'm going to be focusing on how to actually find a potential supervisor, and I think that's where you are going to spend most of your time like before you get admission. So finding research area, and I think this is kind of, I think, the most easiest step, because most of the time you know your area of interest, and if you want to actually learn more about like what research opportunities are available in different departments, I think the first step would be, or where to start is, you have to go to the department website and check their different research areas. You can also check faculty profile or a research group website, but I have to acknowledge that sometimes most of our faculty members, we don't actually update our website on regular basis. So I think, the most effective way to learn about our recent research is actually check our recent publication. So what topics we are working on right now. And nowadays, most of our faculty members, we have Google Scholar profile. So you can check, you can search on Google Scholar and check our recent paper, and possibly see whether your research interest match with our research or not. And then based on your research interest, you can actually prepare a short list of your potential supervisor. At least I would recommend have 3 or 4 faculty member, and then you can go to the next step. So basically you can start contacting your potential supervisor from your short list. And so now the next step is how to actually write an effective email to get noticed by your potential supervisor. So I would recommend, not to just, uh, prepare one or draft one email and then shoot this email to all potential supervisor. That's not a very good idea. That's kind of going to show that you did not do your homework properly, or you did not put enough effort to actually kind of search a different research area, or maybe you don't have a clear plan what you want to do. So try to tailor your email for each potential supervisor, because most of our research area, yes, we collaborate with each other, but most of us, we have our own signature research area. So that's why you want to actually tailor your email for each professor, and try to be as specific as possible, and that's going to actually help you help actually the potential supervisor to understand what exactly you are looking for and what's your plan. And try to keep your email short, like within 250 to 350 words, because you don't want to write a whole long story, because every day we receive like 25 to 30 emails. So we are not going to, if it's a very long email, we are not going to spend time to actually read your email. We are going to directly check your CV and then determine whether we are interested or not, right? And at maximum you can have 3 to 4 paragraphs. So now how to actually write the email. So try to actually write your email in a proper letter format, like when you apply for a job, like a cover letter you write. So it's going to be more like a cover letter, and start with a proper or formal salutation. So professor or doctor, and then last name. So if you are emailing me, my name is Dr. Bipro Dhar. So when you are going to be emailing me, you can write Professor or Dr. Dhar. So please don't write, sir or madam, because even, like when I was applying for my grad school in 2008, possibly I used sir or madam in some of my email. But this is not, I think it's better to use proper salutation. That's kind of show that you are kind of like know how to communicate. And then in the very beginning you should specify which program you are interested in. Either you are interested in masters or you are interested in PhD program. And then you should also mention about your desired start date, when you can start your program. And then briefly discuss your research interest, research experience. If you have some research experience before, you can actually mention that. Academic and research achievement. You should, if you have a great CGPA, you can mention about your CGPA. If you have some publication already published, you can mention about those publication, or any prestigious awards that you received. You can actually mention that. And you can also actually briefly mention about, like, what's your future career goal. Because sometimes when we want to actually recruit master's student, we want actually, some professor, they want to retain them for even for PhD program. So if you are applying for MSc program, you can mention that in the future you want to also apply for actually a PhD program, or you want to do a PhD in the long run. So that kind of sometimes can motivate your potential supervisor for a long-term relationship with you. And then you have to actually explain why you are particularly interested about your potential supervisor's research program. So if you are applying to me, you have to actually describe why you are interested about my research program, and how you're going to be a good fit. So how your academic background, or if your research experience, if you have any, how it's a good fit to my research program or my research lab. And then I think there are a few things that you can actually use to differentiate yourself with other applicant. So, and I have seen, like, many students actually use this when they actually send me email. So you can briefly describe what could be a potential research topic for your thesis. Yes, maybe, if I recruit you, that's not going to be your topic exactly, but that's kind of like show that you have a vision what you want to do. And why is that? Because and how you can actually do that. So as I said, you can go to Google Scholar, read couple of recent article, and you can mention in your email, okay, Dr. Dhar, I read this recent article from your research group, and I found it's very interesting, and I feel that if I can have the opportunity to join your team, I can actually, so that project can be expanded to some different areas. So, or what that can be actually further done in future research. And I want to actually work in this topic. And even maybe I don't need or I don't have any funding for this to extend this project, but that's going to actually show that you have some long-term vision. You can think outside the box. Another thing you can do is you can mention about some new or complementary expertise that you are bringing to my research group. So, for example, these days, many students actually apply to me and then they mention that, okay, you know what, I have expertise in machine learning, or I have expertise in some modeling, and your work is mostly focusing on experimental research. I feel that, yes, if I join your lab, I can have more expertise in experimental research. And based on my current experience, actually, I can bring some new tool to combine actually modeling in your research program. So that's kind of, another way to differentiate yourself from other applicants. And then you can finish your email by with your sincerely your regards, and then saying your full name and contact information. And then you should attach your CV. And CV, I think most of you know how to prepare your CV. But one of the thing I kind of noticed that sometimes students they forget to include. So you should also mention about volunteer activities, and this is actually important because sometimes when student applying from Bangladesh and or other universities, sometimes volunteer activities, they are kind of not appreciated that much. uh, like you feel that, okay, volunteer activities kind of like wasting of time, right? But in Canada, we appreciate volunteer activities. That's kind of show that you can work as a team member. Because most of our, at least I can tell in my research program, some of them, most of my project, actually I need to collaborate with others, and sometimes multiple students actually collaborate in one project. So I want someone actually can work as a team. So volunteer activities can reflect that you can actually work as a team. And then next thing, you should actually attach your unofficial transcript so we can see what academic background you have. And then if you have any good publication, you can actually attach that, because sometimes we may overlook some key publication in your CV. But if you feel that if you have a really high quality publication, and if you want to get it noticed, you can actually attach that with the email. And then after you get a response, so let's say you get a response, then most of the time, actually a potential supervisor gonna ask to actually arrange a meeting. Actually, when I applied for my grad school 10 years ago, I think common practice was arranging a phone call. But these days, most of the time, we either do Google Meet or Skype or Zoom meeting. So for that meeting, you have to prepare yourself. So the first thing is you should actually revisit the research areas and expertise of the potential supervisor, and maybe read a couple of recent paper to get a little bit more about his research area. And then you should prepare for a question from potential supervisor. And some common actually thing, sometimes we see some great candidate and we are interested and we arrange meeting. So sometimes what we try to do in those meeting, we try to see whether your CV match with your actually what you are as a person. For example, you have let's say 10 papers in your resume or CV, and we see most of your paper, you are second or third author. Okay, so we might ask question, okay, you know what are the contributions that you made in those paper where you are actually second or third author? Because in all papers, if you are second or third author, that kind of raise some question that whether you can create some idea independently or not, or what are your actual contribution. Sometimes we also ask about, like, if you have some previous research experience, we ask about what research you have done, what tools that you mastered from your previous research experience, what lab skills that you have. And I think and like, sometimes I notice that some students actually, they for those online meetings, they prepare some presentation. And I think that's an excellent approach. Like, you can actually sometimes, like, when you are in a meeting, maybe, first time you are having a meeting with a potential supervisor, you are excited, you are a little bit nervous, so you might miss a lot of things. So I think a nice way is you can actually prepare a presentation where you can compile what experience or academic background you have, or research experience you have. And in the very beginning of this meeting, you can ask the potential supervisor whether he's okay if you actually do a brief presentation. And then that can actually help you have the discussion in a very organized manner. Okay. And then at the same time, you while you actually prepare yourself for actually answering question from a potential supervisor, at the same time, you should also prepare some question for your potential supervisor. And some potential actually question could be like, you can ask about his ongoing research. But most of the time in those meetings, potential supervisor gonna actually discuss a little bit about what a project that you are going to have if you actually join his research program. You can also ask about, like, where a current status of his or her supervised student, like, where they're working, either industry or they're in research, whether they're getting job easily, what research facilities they have. Because sometimes for new faculty members, if they have experimental research, you might have concern about research facilities, whether they have an established lab or not, because you want to actually graduate on time, right? So it's better to ask to make sure that you know whether they have enough research infrastructure, or whether you have to go some other facilities outside to conduct your research. So it's better to have those information in the very beginning. And you can also ask about, like about funding opportunities, like, whether he's going to be providing full funding or partial funding. Like, those are professionals. So sometimes I know that in from our culture, we are shy, but those are very professional. And your potential supervisor not going to be offended if you ask those questions. And my another advice would be open to any follow-up meetings or activities. So sometimes you're potential supervisor may ask you to write a small literature review, or they can actually send you some paper to review and provide your feedback. And why is that? That kind of reflect that your potential supervisor is interested about you, but they still want to confirm few things. Because sometimes, let's say, we know that students have a lot of publication, but maybe publication is actually written by their supervisor, or they used some English editor to actually extensively edit their publication, right? So that's why we want to sometimes check whether they have enough technical writing skill or not. Even I can tell, when I was actually got admission in master's program in Western University, my potential supervisor actually asked me to write about 20. I remember I wrote a 20 pages of literature review. And after I joined their program, actually my supervisor told me she actually made her decision based on that literature review. So if potential supervisor ask for more, if you are really interested to join his program, please kind of try to cooperate, or try to actually entertain those requests. So some important facts, you have to understand that professors, they get actually dozens of email from potential students every week. So sometimes we might miss your email and may not reply. And if you don't receive a response, you can send a follow-up email, but wait for a few weeks at least 10 days or 15 days, and then you can send a follow-up email. And you might be an excellent candidate and you may not receive a response. There could be two reasons actually. Uh, your potential supervisor, maybe he's not looking for a student at that time, or maybe he is actually looking for a student with other background or expertise in other area. And for thesis based student program, actually decisions are made on a case by case basis. So sometimes you have to understand that an excellent candidate based on CB, they are not recruited. And there are many different reasons actually behind that. So sometimes we found that actually CB doesn't match with the reality in the actually when we actually meet the student or have an interview. Then you have let's say paper in three or so. For example, my research program, I do a lot of things on biological processes. So if I ask you during interview some basic question, and if you cannot answer, you have 10 papers, you should be able to answer some of those questions. So then actually we can tell, okay, you know what, like student doesn't have in-depth knowledge. So maybe most of the ideas came from their supervisor and they don't have enough background. Okay. And sometimes high CGPA, but some students are exam smart, but they are not actually, uh, but there are many different reasons. As I said, maybe you are excited, you are nervous, and your, interview doesn't go very well. And sometimes reference letter could be create some concern. So sometimes we see that some reference are only few sentences. It doesn't actually clearly reflect the opinion, or some reference letters, they're 2 pages, so that's kind of show that, okay, your referee actually kind of want you to succeed or want you to get admission. um, so good reference letters are also important. And sometimes another factor is we want to maintain diversity in our group. So for example, I'm from originally from Bangladesh, but I don't want all students from Bangladesh in my group, because that's kind of against the spirit of Canada. We have a Canada is, we have a diverse and multicultural country. So I want to have the diversity in my group as well, right? So I don't want to have all students from same race or same country. So sometimes to maintain diversity, we kind of skip some excellent candidate. So if you don't get admission after having all those, you have excellent CB, excellent academic background, and even if you still don't get admission, don't get upset. There is nothing personal here. I'm pretty sure if you are an excellent candidate, you are going to end up in somewhere and you are going to be successful. So finally, few more frequently asked question. Is it possible to switch to a different field from your undergraduate degree to a graduate program? So yes, I think example is in front of you. I did my undergrad in chemical engineering, and right now I'm in environmental engineering. So I switched my field, and this is widely accepted. And in my undergrad program, I did not take a single environmental engineering course. So all my courses I took in my grad studies. So yes, I had to take some extra courses, but eventually I could switch my program. Can I get admission in a thesis-based program with own funding commitment? This is kind of like it depends on what form of own funding that you are offering. So if you have an external scholarship, yes, we kind of gonna happy to take you. But if you say you are gonna be actually use your personal funding, sometimes we are a little bit careful, because we know that sometimes students feel that okay, they can if they are here, eventually they can manage their funding. Uh, or maybe they have funding for 1 or 2 terms, and they kind of hope that okay, eventually they're going to funding from their supervisor. Yes, if we have our funding, okay, available, we want to support. Actually, most of my students in my program, they are actually fully supported, either external or internal funding. So but we don't want to actually make a commitment until we have funding. So sometimes even if you offer, okay, I'm gonna pay my tuition in living cost and I want to come and join you, uh, we are going to be a little bit careful. And you have to keep that in mind, that if you don't have funding, it's going to be a little bit tricky or challenging to get actually visa, okay, or student visa, or study permit. uh, Another question could be, can I get admission to a PhD program with an undergrad degree? I know that many universities in US, they offer actually direct PhD, but this is not a common practice in Canada overall, or at University of Alberta. But sometimes if we get like excellent candidate, sometimes we actually consider them for direct PhD, but this is not a very common practice in our program. Uh, Another question could be, can I switch from a MSc to PhD program? I think this is kind of like almost similar question. Yes, most of our programs allow actually to actually convert from MSc to PhD. But this is only actually approved for a student who can actually demonstrate significant progress within first 18 months in their course and research activities. Then there are some process. Uh, yeah. And another thing, I think I missed that in the first question. If you want to switch your area from a different undergraduate degree, possibly your grad unit or your department gonna ask you to take some additional courses to have enough background in your new area. Okay. So if you are have a mechanical engineering degree, and if you want to take an environmental engineering degree, we may ask you to take 4 or 5 extra courses in environmental engineering. So last but not the least, a question could be, do I really need a grad degree, okay, or graduate degree? So if you come to Canada, uh, uh, if you come to Canada, and if you wanna, sometimes actually, if you don't have prior Canadian experience, a great degree can actually help you to get noticed and get a job in Canada. And sometimes a great degree, even if you're not actually interested in research, a great degree can help you in many ways for your professional development, making connection, enhancing your communication skill. And I think one of the most important thing that you can get is you can develop your problem solving and critical thinking skill. You can think outside the box after you have a grad degree. So I'll stop here, and thank you so much everyone for listening. And we can have a few minutes. I'm not sure whether, I hope I did not take a whole lot of time. And if we have some time for Q&A, I'll be happy to answer those questions.
Uh, Thank you, Dr. Dhar. It's very interesting. And when I'm looking what I have done, like there could be thousand things that I could improve myself maybe 20 years ago. So it's a very informative, I would say. And from Bangladesh,
Thank you.
uh, we don't know how to write our CV properly. I am not blaming anybody, just myself. So when I was studying my undergrad and finished my undergrad, I didn't have much idea how to write a better CV or how to uh, approach to a supervisor, because we are asking supervisors to give us some reference letter, but we never looked at it, how it was written. So and whether it's a single page or one paragraph or two paragraphs, as you have mentioned, those are very useful information. And uh, from my experience, what I learned that if you want to apply, then take it as a challenge. Then don't try to apply here and there. Just focus on that and make that decision and spend your time. It will get you. Uh, it will make you a better, competent applicant, and supervisors are looking at it. I don't know because you explained a lot, you covered a lot. Maybe will in that case we might get a less number of questions, and also I don't want to keep the folks for longer time because we are almost 10 minutes before the midnight in Bangladesh. First of all, there are lots of comments, especially how that could be helpful for the graduate students who are in Bangladesh and trying to uh, have a higher study in abroad, especially in Canada. So that's very helpful. We got lots of comments on that, but also we have some specific questions. So I ask the person who is actually running the technology to bring up some of the questions so that Dr. Dhar can answer
Yeah, I can actually see one question on the screen.
that. Okay.
I'm not sure whether I
No,
should
no,
answer
sure.
this
Yeah,
first.
that's the question.
Yeah, so the first question, I hope everyone can see it on the screen. So, is confirmation from a potential advisor mandatory before applying for a thesis based MSc in environmental engineering and science? Yes, actually, most of our grad program, you need a confirmation. So, confirmation means actually, your to complete your application package on the FGSR website, you need a expression of interest letter. That's letter gonna mention that your potential supervisor is actually interested to review your application. That's not a confirmation that, okay, you know what, like you got admission. That's kind of show that you found a potential supervisor. So that means after FGSR process your application, they are going to directly send your application to the grade unit, and grade secretary going to actually forward your application to the potential supervisor rather than sending your application to everyone. So this is to minimize our time, and the expression of interest letter doesn't confirm that, okay, you are going to get admission. So this is not a guarantee that you are going to get application and funding. This is kind of just show that you have a potential supervisor, and but you have to your application or admission requirement going to be reviewed by FGSR, reviewed by the grad office and grad coordinator and associate dean. So and the whole process can take close to 2 months at least. Yeah.
Thank you. We got the second question where it was asked if any student doesn't have required CGPA or IELTS score, but the possesses like few publications and researches, it is possible to have admission in the university if he or she can convince the potential supervisor.
That's actually a great question, and I can actually answer this from my experience. So sometimes I can tell we received a lot of excellent candidate, like with a few publication, but somehow they don't have IELTS score or their CGPA is slightly below the admission requirement. So those requests are actually kind of processed on a case by case basis. For MINT program, I can tell, like if a student doesn't meet the requirement for CGPA and IELTS score, we don't actually admit them for course-based program. But for thesis-based program, sometimes, like let's say, I personally receive a lot of email from industry and consulting companies. Someone want to get a master's degree for their career progression, and but somehow their bachelor degree, their CGPA is little bit less than the minimum requirement. So it depends, as I said, based on a case by case basis. So for example, like minimum requirement is 3 And if someone has 2.9 or 2.95, sometimes if we can justify, okay, why the student could not do well in their undergrad, but right now they have extensive industry experience or research experience. Sometimes we make some or offer some conditional admission. So how it works, so sometimes we ask them to actually take 3 or 4 courses, and at the time they are not funded, they actually they pay their tuition and take 3 or 4 courses, and based on their CGPA, if we can see that, okay, they can get excellent CGPA on those courses or grade on those courses, then we can actually give them admission. So some of them are provided conditional admission, but as I said, those cases are very rare, and they are actually processed on a case by case basis.
Thank you. Next question, please. Asking on behalf of the student, any suggestion for students with lower CGPA in undergraduate to get a master's or PhD admission? So,
Yeah, I think I would say minimum requirement. Okay, so minimum, if you as long as you meet the minimum requirement, you can get admission. Okay, so even in my group, so I personally, I don't first look at the CGPA. I see CV, I see the candidate as overall. Okay. um, as I said, sometimes CGPA doesn't clearly reflect how student gonna fit in my research program. So it's not just CGPA or paper. You may have 10 papers in a different area, right? And but I don't see you as a good fit for my research program. So it's more like whether you are a good fit and whether you meet the minimum requirement. So if program requirement is 3, you can still get admission with CGPA 3 out of 4.
no, thank you. I have one question that I like to ask you, because sometimes when people are doing a masters in Bangladesh, they are thinking that whether they could apply to a PhD program abroad or not, whether their masters is acceptable around the world. So, what do you think about that?
So yeah, so that part actually, I'm not sure whether I could clearly answer that, but most of the time, whether their actually their previous institution, whether it's recognized or not, actually this part is determined by the FGSR. So we don't determine that as a potential supervisor. So this is actually completely done by the FGSR. So yeah, I'm sorry. Maybe I cannot
No, no,
answer.
no, no. Yeah, I think that's a good thing, and people need to know that, like, when it's not like applying for a master's or the PhD is different, and also it varies from the university, and maybe University of Alberta has a list of universities from Bangladesh, then they know that they could use those. But for other things, like sometimes people are asking that whether the degree needs to be evaluated from any Canadian institution or something like that. So, is there any requirement that we student from a Bangladesh needs to send his or her certificate to a Canadian institute who would be evaluating that and then say that, okay, it's equivalent to your master's or equivalent to our undergrad degree?
Yeah. So for students applying for from Bangladesh, actually this is not a requirement. Uh, uh, Typically, what happens when a student apply, they submit their transcript. So FGSR, they have a unit there. So they actually they have a process. I'm not quite sure how that works, but based on the transcript, they convert their CGPA or grade to a scale So we can actually compare the applicant with other, like our Canadian grading systems in different Canadian universities. So like some universities, they offer CGPA, like if someone applying from Iran, it's 20, so scale of 20. So some students have 15 out of 20, some students have 18 out of 20 their CGPA. If someone applying from Bangladesh, it's out of 4, right? In some students applying from India, they are out of 5. So all of them are converted to some scale of 4, or a letter grade, and then based on that they are actually evaluated. So we have a unit in FGSR. I think students applying from Bangladesh, they don't need to do that. They don't need to send their transcript or certificate to a separate entity. I think they can directly apply, and FGS are going to evaluate them.
No, thank you, Dr. Dhar. And I'm just thinking about the time. I wish we could run that program for another 15 or 20 minutes, but
And I'm
because
sorry
of the
about that. Maybe
no, no,
I
no,
a lot,
no,
so
no,
maybe
no. I
I
think
took some extra
what
time.
you have
Yeah.
covered is very good and is very useful. And I am amazed what you have shown to the folks. You actually shown how to be successful, and it's a step by step procedure. So it's very good. But we like to end that webinar within a minute. Before doing that, I am very thankful, and I hope all the listeners are very thankful to you because you spend lots of time to prepare those slides for us because it's not your usual lecture. So you have to put extra effort on it. And the other thing is it's your holiday or the vacation. You are actually taking away time from your family and give it to us. So that's very appreciated. And on behalf of BUETAAA Alumni Association Alberta, we are also thanking you for it. And last of not last, but especially the participants who are making that event successful. Thank you for joining us, especially from Bangladesh when you are still wake up to listen the talk of Dr. Dhar till 12 o'clock at night. So hopefully you will be benefited from that talk. And if you have any questions, you can post it in our Facebook page or you can email us. The email address has been shared and we'll try to communicate with Bipro Dhar, or you can even directly reach to Dr. Dhar for any admission type of questions. Uh, Last but not least, I want to mention that there are lots of efforts going on behind the scene. I would sincerely thank the BUET Alumni Association of Alberta as well as those persons who are spending lots of time to make it happen. Thank you all and have a great day and good night.
Yeah, thank you. It was my pleasure, and thanks for having me. Yeah.
Okay? No, thank you.